Welcome to the Vault podcast. My name is Dave Wakerley. With me is Funny Man Dan. We are still looking for a member to join our team. So far, we've been through Jim Weidman, a good candidate. Don't get me wrong.
Great.
A good candidate.
Tick too many boxes, I think.
Maybe overqualified.
Yeah, definitely.
But
we didn't have the budget for it.
We are about to interview our latest candidate who may fit exactly the criteria we're looking for. Every leader has different strengths, weaknesses, and philosophies of ministry that guide their decision making. What you're about to witness is a real fake job interview with a potential new team member. Will they crumble under the pressure or rise to the challenge? Today's applicant is Sam Luce. Dan, tell us about Sam. Who is he?
Well, Sam Luce is a friend of mine, but he's probably one of my most studied friends. In fact, he has a BA, a Bachelor of Attendance. So he went to school, which was great. But he has been the children's and families pastor at Redeemer Church for 16 years. That's my guess. Which 25. Is a great... Oh, so close. 25.
Did you just go for 16? Just pluck it out of the air.
I went for 16. Yeah, no. Actually, when I first met you, it was 16. So I guess it
was 16 years before COVID, I think.
That's right. Yeah, definitely. And those, you can't count those 2 years because everything just is a blur. So 25 or 23, we'll downgrade a little bit. He's also has got a master's in art in Christian. I forgot to write it. Christian hermeneutics, theology.
No.
And
Christian and classical thought.
Let's just say this: he's one step away from getting a doctorate if he so chooses.
Yes.
Let's say that.
Well, he's got two masters. He's the kind of guy that orders 2 appetizers before going for a main, because he also got his Masters of Art in Biblical and Theological Studies. I wrote that one down.
Good job. So
Sam Luce.
Sam Luce, it is great to have you with us, Sam. We've known you for many years. But today,
blogger, father, husband.
You still doing the intro, Dan?
Sorry, his wife makes a great ice cream sandwich.
Okay.
Lots of things.
It's true. Yeah.
So we've known Sam for a long time, and this is a whole new experience for Sam because, I mean, he's sitting there on absolute pins and needles, just anticipating this job interview. Now, Sam, you understand, we want you to be part of our team, and we believe in you. But many have come and few have succeeded. And so today you could become a part of this team. You could become another brick in the wall of glory that we are building here on the Vault podcast.
Now, not to add to the pressure, but to join our team is to also join their team, because we're a part of everyone's listening. So it's a big responsibility. Anything you've been doing to prepare for this interview, Sam? Any preparation?
Well, I've never done an interview. I was hired by my senior pastor without an interview, and I've only worked here. So
man, glad that worked
out.
out.
My first one, so I'm a little nervous.
Oh, good.
Okay. Well, it's a short CV.
Sam, we're going to start off with a quick ministry skill check. I would like you to rank your abilities, 1 to 10, 1 being terrible, 10 being amazing, for the following categories of ministry skills. Okay. This is just to gauge your potential for this role. So number 1, 1 to 10, could you rank your ability at puppetry?
Hello?
Making it.
Hello, Dan?
Oh my gosh!
Hello, everybody. My name's Egbert, and I'm here to offer moral support for Pastor Sam. Could you rephrase the question in English?
Well, you've answered it. That's a 10. Can we say that, Egbert? Would we give him
a 10?
That's a 10.
It's making me feel uncomfortable.
All right. I guess they want to just talk to me, Egbert. Okay. All right. They can't handle this. I get it. So, I guess you gave me a 10. I would give you a 1. Egbert has been with me for 28 years.
Amazing. He doesn't look a day over 10.
So yes, we're giving you a 10 for puppetry. We don't have to ask the next question, which is ventriloquism, which is a 0. On to the next one.
Why do you give a 0?
Number 3, Sam Luce. 1 to 10, balloon animals.
This is, oh yeah.
What are we gonna do?
Balloon animals.
Yeah, balloon animals. I've heard about stories about
Balloon
balloons.
animals. Yes. I actually, this is a little known fact. One of my jobs when I was a teenager, when I was 13 years old, before I could work in a proper place because of child labor laws, I was a clown at birthday parties.
What animal was your specialty?
I was really good at poodles. I was very good at swords.
Everyone's good at poodles and swords.
I was good at worms.
Snakes.
Snakes. I made an excellent snake.
Look, I want to put you down for a 10 on that. So that's
Yeah, we'll put down for 10.
number 4 here. 1 to 10, overhead transparency production, or we'll take also PowerPoint design.
PowerPoint design overhead. Yes, I would say I'm a solid, because I've done both.
Yeah.
So I would give myself, I'd probably give myself about an 8 on that.
Oh, he's doing well, Dan.
Because I'm so good that I know that you have to turn the transparencies upside down to you for them to be right side up for because that's how you always knew, like
Key
the
knowledge.
overhead ministry. You know when someone it was their first time because all the words are upside down.
Number 5 here, photocopying, or if you are old enough, lithograph duplicators, which not many people have used that, but photocopying.
No, photocopying. I'm fairly proficient at photocopying, although I dislike it greatly.
Okay.
And I presently don't know my photocopy code for my own department, so I would probably have to give myself a 5 on that.
Okay. It's good.
Right.
It's good to be honest. All right, number 6 here, audio cassette duplication.
Audio cassette duplication. Now, I did not do that, although our church had like 10 machines for that. But my wife, when she worked at the church as the receptionist, that was part of her duties. So
Nice.
I think by a close proximity and association, I would probably give myself a 6 because I could.
Right, you know to call.
You know someone. You know
I
someone.
know
that's good.
I know how to do. I know a person who knows a person.
Exactly. All right, what about number 7 here, 1 to 10, felt board operation?
I'm actually thinking about relaunching flannel graphs, and this is I'm being serious.
Really?
Yeah, actually, yeah. So
The world's waiting for
I
it.
would say 7. I would say a 7.
So Dave, I'm just picking up a few trends because that's my role. He's still got his flannel graph. He's still got his overhead projector.
Yep.
He may be a hoarder, so we just need to note that down.
I'll note that. I'll note that down. All right, here we go. I need to get a feel for your general craft skill and ability. I mean, I'm talking paper mache, I'm talking scissors, I'm talking cutting things out.
I would say a 1.
Okay. So
Yeah, and this is the reason, right? So I was very pro craft. I remember one time what happened was, maybe I should say this for mistakes. I don't know. What I did was I thought it would be cool for the kids for their Father's Day to make a bead project with like the string and the beads of an American flag.
Right.
On Father's Day.
Oh, wow.
Not sure why I was thinking that. Not sure why I thought that. But anyway, what happened was it's
what Jesus would do.
It's very, very, very American, America. So what I would do is, it's like this pattern, like back and forth. And so what actually ended up, what 98.9% of fathers got was a red, white, and blue necklace. Because it was, if you've ever tried to help a kindergartner make like a square bead thing, it is not recommended. And
All right, so
very closely lost my mind, and I've never done a craft since then.
Right.
And
trauma.
Yeah.
Trauma there. I'm sorry for bringing.
Yeah. Thank you very much for bringing up trauma. I appreciate that. So.
Yeah. Well, it's okay. So you had a craft went wrong. I just remember when.
Yeah,
Jim
very
told
wrong, and I
his
haven't
story
really
about-
done crafts since then. Yeah.
When Jim told his story about his biggest mistake, a person got arrested and his pilot license got taken away. But sure, it's definitely trauma. Lots
Yours
of trauma.
was serious as well.
Yeah, very bad.
Number 9.
Are you minimizing my trauma? That's traumatic.
We're helping you get through it. Number 9 here, Excel spreadsheets. We're talking Microsoft. We're talking spreadsheets.
Yeah, I know. I'm excellent with the sum button. All the thing I just finished yesterday. All of our budgets for all of our campuses, and so.
Okay. Final ministry skill check: offering collection and counting.
Oh, offering collection. So this is a fun fact. When I first started, our budget was primarily, fully funded by the collection of the offering of our children.
Wow.
So we did, Yeah, that was where my budget came from when I initially started kids ministry. And so
That's
it
amazing.
was, I stopped short of the shop vac nose sucking
Oh,
offering collection devices. I don't.
Look,
don't know if you've
I'm
seen those.
unaware of this device, but I'll Google
Oh,
it
it's
later.
a phenomenon.
Right.
You'll have to watch it. So the thing is all the rage is you take like a small shop vac and you make it look like a monster, and then you take the hose and make it look like a nose, and then you suck up the kid. The kids bring their offering, and it sucks their offering up. So
Right.
all the rage.
Wow. So
I don't do
you've
that.
got
So I would say probably about I'd give myself about a 7. I would say.
This is a very good start. I'm just like you to know as the candidate, you've started very strong. A couple of bonus questions. Have you ever used the font
Yes.
Comic Sans in any designs? Yes or no?
No.
Okay. Ooh.
I'm a big anti, and I also don't. I have a very I have a problem with lots of fonts.
Okay.
I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah,
Okay.
I also don't like
Really?
Algerian. I don't like Algerian. I don't like
Papyrus?
I don't like
Papyrus?
oh, I hate papyrus.
That's a very impressive beginning, Sam. All right, we're going to move on just to find out. We're going to find out a little bit about your background here. We already know that you started your ministry with them funded by children.
Yes.
Our first question here is actually says, walk us through your resume, but it's not really a walk, more of a trip.
a glance.
Just half a step. So let's gloss over that one.
You've had many roles, obviously, at your church. You've moved around a
Yes.
little bit. Give me one of the over the last, however it sounded like since the late 1800s you've been at your church. What's one of your highlights from your storied career that stands out to you? And it could be in any department or any role that you had.
I would say honestly, Dave, one of the highlights for me, right, is and this is one of the there's difficulties in leaving and going somewhere, but there's difficulties in staying somewhere. And I said, but one of the joys of staying somewhere is, I remember a couple of years ago when I was walking through some of the rooms in the kids ministry, and like 90% of the people that were running the kids ministry were people who had been in kids ministry when I was a kids pastor. And so for me, it was just and in that season of my life, it was, I was like wondering if this is what I should be doing or if I should be somewhere else. And God used that moment, I think, in a very profound way, just to allow me to see that His work in the lives of people. Like sometimes you don't always get to stick around to see it. When I grew up, I moved like every 3 to 5 years. And so I never really saw people grow beyond the stage of life I knew them in. And to see kids that came in as kindergartners and preschoolers, now serving and teaching and loving kids because of the work that God had done in their life. And I was able to be a part of that and observe that was probably to me one of the most significant moments, and just to see that happen for me is humbling.
Yeah.
So I would say that's probably it.
I would like to know, in terms of your study and in terms of your theological kind of training that you've had, has there been a couple of book or a book that stood out that's really helped you at I'm not just talking ministry level, I'm talking at a theological level, like a deep knowledge level?
Yeah, so I would say probably a few different ones. So I would say, probably the most profound book for me that I read during about the art of pastoring, and the need for pastoring, was Pastor as Minor Poet. It's such a good book. It's so profound, and it was so insightful to me about what our role is as a pastor, no matter whether you're kids pastor, lead pastor, campus pastor, whatever it is, and I've been in different roles, and my roles now is different. All my friends change their cities and churches. I just change my jobs every 5 years. Whenever they move to a new city, I move to a new position. So that's sort of been my thing. So I found it super helpful, and I think it would help benefit anybody. That one, in my classical studies, the degree that Dan didn't write down, was my Master's of Arts in Christian and Classical Studies. And in that one, we had to read all these classical works of the Western tradition and juxtapose them against the theological books of the Western tradition and the theological books that have framed our church history. And so I think for me, one of the most profound books I read during that was Dante's Divine Comedy. And reading through it, I found it was in that season of my life, and still to this day, I found it's to be so enriching as a person, and just the whole thing of how he wrote that book, and the way he was. He starts off, he says, "In the middle of our life, I found myself in a dark wood." And so just for me, being in the middle of my life, at reading that, I just found, where am I going to spend? And I think this question is so profound. I've lived more life than I have left to live. How am I going to invest those years in a way that is for my good and God's glory? And so it just goes through this whole thing, and then it talks about how he was exiled, and the pain of exile. And I think any person who has experienced difficulty in church life, in family life, of loss, and those types of things, who've been through difficulties, can understand what it feels like to feel exiled from people and relationships and situations, and to know what that is. And so him just going through that, and what to me still boggles my mind is he wrote three books. All of them had 33 cantos in them. And 3 of them. So everything was evolved around the Trinity for him. And then right exactly in the middle of his 3rd book, he puts at and he counted, it was, which I don't even know how he did this, but the exact middle of the 3rd book was the height of what all of it was about the love of God for us. It's about God's love. So he builds to God's love and then builds from it. So it's, to do that in exactly the way he did, to me, was moving, but it was also so profound. I don't know how he did that.
Right.
So I think those are a couple of the books I found that are super helpful, and then also Augustine's Confessions. I think every Christian should read.
Dan, I'd just like to let you know, Dan,
there you go.
That we've both just earned a master's degree in the Sam Luce School of Divinity just after that. So we are now, we're good. If you want to go for your doctorate, Dan, and maybe another couple of questions, though.
Dr. Dan sounds fantastic.
Yeah, it does.
My question for you, Sam, is how do you choose to communicate deep thoughts and theology to your children in your kids' ministry?
Well, yeah. So here's the thing. Like the way I approach children is the same as the way that I think we should approach anybody. Is everything in the Bible is true. Everything in the Bible is pertinent to children, right? And so to say that is a little, makes us draw back and say, okay, what are we going to talk to our kids about, Sodom and Gomorrah, And my answer is that we should teach everything in the Bible to our kids. The question for us as communicators, as pastors, as parents, is not what should we teach our kids, but how should we teach our kids the Bible. But this isn't one you would typically find, like the death angel visiting and killing the firstborn child. Like, that's not something that you would typically tell, And so that was the story that was up. That was what was up next. And so the Bible story communicator, and she did such a brilliant job. And she's been teaching in our church for somewhere between 15 and 20 years. And what she did was, and when she did this, I started just weeping because of God's grace and because of our need. It reminded me of my need it compelled me, I guess I should say, to proclaim the gospel to kids more and more. Because what she did was she bought like a big fat red ribbon, and she wound it over the kids. She wound it, and she would have the kids hold one end, and it would go over, and it was over the whole crowd, right? And then she said, if the red ribbon is over your head, reach up and grab it. And so the kids reached up and grabbed it. And so she said that what happened was, when those who put the blood over the doorposts and over the sides of their doors, they were saved. And the ribbon wasn't over every kid. And
right.
I remember standing by the door watching that, and it was such a profound moment for me, that I realized that the kids got it. Is that there is a sense of that when we are covered by the blood of Christ, and when we grab a hold of the blood that he has shed for us, and when we come to the understanding of what he has done, his work for us, that we're not saved because we're good, we're saved because we're his. That it provided for those kids such a profound understanding of what that story meant, and the purpose of that story in the Old Testament and how it pointed forward to Christ. And I think that's why what we have to do with kids is we say, not what should we teach them, but how should we teach them the Bible.
There's a series of videos online called that Wired Magazine does, where they teach one idea to 5 different levels of people. So they'll actually start teaching it to a kid, and in the case of the one I'm thinking of, which was Jacob Collier, this musician, would teach a concept to a child, a teenager, all the way up to someone who had studied music at a great higher level. Does that kind of ring true to you in that kind of sense? The same idea at different levels, or yeah?
Yeah, I think so, Dave. But I think where we have to be careful, particularly as kids ministers, right, is the temptation for us is to simplify Scripture instead of distill it. Right? So the difference between simplification and distillation is simplification is I make things so simple that kids can grab it and move on. Distillation, what we do in that is you remove the non-essential and leave what can never be removed. Right. And so this is what we have to fight for is we so underestimate what kids can understand. Number one. Number two is we don't create categories in the minds of kids that they're going to need one day that they don't necessarily need to access now. So when we talk about the providence of God, how God takes care of us, how he ordains all things, how he leads us and guides us in a very specific way, and how he's good. Right? To simplify that, we say, oh, God's good and God loves you. Both are true. But to say that God takes care of you in such a way that he even makes bad things work towards your good, that he can take bad things and make them good, that's bigger than what kids can understand. But what you're doing in kids at that moment is you're creating a category in their mind for mystery, a category in their mind for wonder that they don't fully understand now, but when they get older, right, they will need that, because life will hit them and slam them, and sorrow will come to their door. And if they are not prepared for it, they will be wrecked by it. And so what we have to do with kids, right, is that we have to give them a faith that they can grow into, not a faith that they can grow out of. And what the church has done, I think, in kids ministry, what we have been guilty of, is simplifying faith so much that we give them a faith that they move on from rather than grow into.
Yeah.
And this is something that we have to be vigilant about. We have to be vigilant. This is why theology matters. This is why us thinking deeply and thinking rightly about things in such a way that kids can understand it now, but also creates categories in the future for wonder. And it is more important for us as Christian leaders, particularly with kids, because their worldview is shaped. Kids' worldviews are shaped largely by between 8 and 11 years old. These kids believe what they're going to believe by the time they're 8 to 11 years old. And God's sovereign. God can rescue. He saves people in their 50s, 60s, 70s. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, but largely what people believe when they're 8 to 11 years old is what they're going to die believing. Yeah. And if that's true, what we do is more important than anything else, any other place in the church. And I said that. I was a campus pastor for a while. I said, I'm a campus pastor. The most important thing that happens in this church happens in our kids' ministry.
We want to hear your biggest failure. What was the idea that you had something to do with kids and it just tanked? You thought it would be great.
Before I tell you what it is, I have since included in, experience teaches us things. And so I have passed this on to our present kids and youth pastors. And this is the bit of advice I have gleaned from, I'll tell you what I learned before I tell you what happened. If you have to explain this game, and it sounds stupid, particularly to an ER doctor,
right.
Don't
play it.
Don't play that game. So start there.
Okay.
We had a 3-person slingshot, like the thing, I don't know if you've seen those. 2 people hold it, and then you pull it back and you shoot water balloons. But because of the boundless and endless amounts of creativity that are contained within me, I created a game where we would fling things each group of kids, their team color, they would gather together and they'd say, okay, let's fling things, let's fling whatever we can find, and whoever flings it the furthest wins that particular game. And so I called it again, because of my boundless creativity, I called it Fling It. So what they would do is they would go to their cabins and they would bring back things that they could fling. So one brilliant child decided to open up his flashlight and fling a D battery. They go very far. Then there was this one kid who decided that he wanted to outdo the last kid, and so he got a D battery, and he pulled it back so far, right? Pulled it back, pulled it back, pulled it back, let go, and I didn't see it fly. I thought, man, that went somewhere. But what happened is it didn't open. It came back, and it hit the kid in the forehead.
No.
Right.
And he fell on his face like this, and I literally prayed, dear Lord Jesus, please, like, because he was grabbing his face. I thought he lost an eye.
Right.
I almost vomited. He got up, and there was blood shooting out of the top of his head. He hit right. Luckily for him, for us, for everybody, he hit the top of his head right here.
Yeah.
And so I had to accompany him to the camp director said, hey, what happened? I explained the premise of fling it. He stared at me like we were flinging D batteries into his woods.
Yeah.
He stared at me like I was an idiot. Then we got to the ER doctor, had to explain the premise of fling it. Also stared at me like I was an idiot. Had to call the kid's mom, explain the premise of fling it.
Thank you for sharing.
Wow.
This is a safe space, as we've mentioned. It won't go beyond this room.
Thank you, Dave. Yes, thank you.
That was a great trauma. Good job.
Now, we would like to finish off here with some scenarios for you, Sam.
Okay.
These are just things that you might find yourself in a current work environment. Your church is about to start another location. Maybe it's for the first time. Just imagine. What do you focus on first with regards to kids ministry?
Focus at first. I'd first ask my pastor if this is a good idea. And,
Sure.
And make sure that he understands. Because this is the thing with campuses.
Yeah.
Senior pastors love new campuses, but
Generally,
it's them preaching one message and it being sent somewhere, and they don't have to create hundreds of new people to watch kids and teach kids. So the first thing I would start with is making sure that I understand the heart and vision of my senior pastor and why we're doing it, because you will not be able to recruit volunteers if you don't understand why we're doing it, where we're doing it, and what for we're doing it. I mean, we know the general why we're doing it, I think, from church-wide, but like, why specifically are we going to this place? And when you understand that, what you can do is then attach that to a heart for kids and begin to, I think, where I would start with younger kids. And then, because the challenge in small churches, and for us initially when I first came, was you have kindergartners to sixth graders in the same room. So you have to do that is not easy. As a church gets larger, you can specialize and you can do that. So I would start with preschool kids, and then I would start with kindergartners, and I would just kind of work up that way and use the older kids kind of as helpers with the babies, and even help teach. So that's where I would start is focus on the younger kids, because then what you do is you build like a foundation that you can grow from. So that's where I would probably start there, and focus on safety. How can we keep our kids safe? Because if kids aren't safe, they won't come back. If parents don't feel like their kids are safe, they won't bring them. So it doesn't matter how amazing your gospel presentation is if you're not creating an environment where kids feel safe and where parents don't feel like their kids are safe, they won't even be able to hear what you have to say. So
when you hear the word discipleship in relation to kids, what do you think of, Sam Luce?
When I hear the word discipleship, what I think is that is our primary call. That is our primary responsibility. That is the only thing that matters. Everything else is periphery. So this is the thing I fell into. This is the early thing I fell into in kids ministry when I was the first several years. This is the thing. Like when you live somewhere and serve somewhere, as long as I have, right, you run out of gimmicks because no one has that many, right? And so, and the second thing is you have to live with your mistakes, because you can't blame the kids pastor before you, because that was me. And then the other thing you do is you start to realize, and I think this can happen anywhere, but you have regrets. And for me, one of the regrets I have was that initially I made fun the end instead of the means to an end, right? So I'm not anti-fun, but fun has to be a means to a greater end, as we want to engage kids at an age-appropriate level with as much entertainment and fun as we can provide, but that is not the goal of what we're doing. The entertainment and fun is not, we're not trying to out-fun ourselves every week. We're saying, how can we be engaging with kids in such a way that they grow into the image of Christ? You know what Paul says in Galatians 4:19, he says this. He says, I am in pain of childbirth until Christ is formed in you. Right? This is what we should obsess over.
Sam, thank you for coming in today. I really appreciate you taking the time to interview for this role. As we tell everybody of our applicants, don't call us, we'll call you. But just so you know that this is a very,
we're seriously going to consider you.
Yeah.
So hopefully you don't see another interview like this in the future. And for all you listening, stick around, because in a couple of weeks we have Beth Cummingham joining us for an interview.
We do. But that means nothing at this point, Sam. So
No, it's just another candidate. It's just another candidate.
Yeah.
It's another candidate.
Definitely.
I understand how these work, right? So I guess at least how this works.
check out Sam Luce at samluce.com. Everywhere you find Sam Luce.
samluce.com, yeah, you can say that.
Love it. All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Say goodbye, Dan.
Goodbye, Dan.